I'm Joe Smith. I'm the Executive Director of Broken Strength, A Path to Purity, a ministry whose mission is to equip churches to help their men in the battle for sexual purity, especially as it relates to pornography. I'm here with Doug. Doug is a part of our board and has a history here that he's going to talk about that I think might be of benefit to those who listen. Doug, thanks for your time.
You're welcome. Hello, Joe.
Good morning. And how did you first encounter pornography as a young man?
So I worked in a place that was a truck stop, and they had a small library in what we called the back room. And I was a very impressionable 15-year-old, and from that point on, I believe I was hooked. In those days, it was mostly printed material.
Right.
I mean, there was no internet at that time, so so that was where I got started.
And that progressed? Did it peak? Did it ebb? Did it come and go, or was it
Came
consistent?
and went, I was able to on my own keep it from becoming a big issue for years, and so I think that was actually a bad thing for me because I never addressed the problem for years, and at times it would catch me up, and when I'm weak spiritually, it turned out well, and I wasn't even a Christian in those days. So I didn't become a Christian until I was in my mid-30s.
Okay.
And so then I was even more convicted and doing a pretty good job on my own of staying away from it. But I also had a job where I was traveling around to different places in the world, and I was very vulnerable when I was staying in a hotel by myself. So certainly it was a difficult time when I'm out on the road to stay away from that stuff on my own merits.
On your own. And you were married at the time.
I was, yeah.
Do you think your wife was aware of the issue?
No.
She was not.
No.
And so what's the time span here? You're 15. At what point is there a crisis?
So it wasn't until I kept everything pretty well separate from my home life until pornography got to the internet. And by then I'm 60 years old, and all of a sudden this thing hit me like a hammer. I couldn't stay away from it for a brief period of time. And then, of course, my wife is noticing that something's not right here. And so she confronted me and said, "What's going on?" And I never want to lie to my wife. I never had to lie to her to keep my pornography, habit hidden from her because she never asked. But towards the end, then she asked me what's going on, and so I leveled with her and hit her like I socked her in the gut or something.
So 15 starts, 30 you become a believer, and how old are you now at this point where she finds out?
60 about.
So 45 years and 30 of those as a Christian.
Yeah.
How are you rationalizing this? How do you balance this in your life? Is it causing stress, guilt, or are you just kind of going, it's just the way life is?
No, huge amounts of guilt and shame, and I even was invited many times to be on the board here at church and was on it as an elder for a term, and that's a real thing to have to deal with, is knowing that you're in a position where you're expected to be a leader and being at the top of your game as far as your faith goes, and yet you're a phony. I'm not walking the talk. So.
And no point in there did you talk to another brother about this or talk to a pastor or anyone?
No, that's the problem with shame and guilt. It's something that keeps normal men from coming forward, and it wasn't until my wife brought me out, called me out on this, that I thought, I've got to do something. It's got me really addicted now, and so I searched out a program that would, I didn't even know anything about a program at that point. I got on the internet And
For
sure
positive reasons.
yeah, exactly. And sure enough, as the Lord directed me, within probably 6 or 7 days, there was what was called a battle in those days, and I showed up for that, not knowing what to expect, and that became my road to recovery. I was well, I got started at that point and never looked back. I'm still involved in it to this day. Fortunately, on the other side of a porn problem, and dedicated my life now to helping other men go down the same path to recovery that I did.
Amen. Tell me about that event. What were keys that put you on the path to recovery?
Certainly, I think the confession was the biggest part. To be able to say to another man that, I have an addiction to this sin, and to hear that come out of your own lips is a big hurdle, a giant hurdle. And from that point on, the rest was fairly easy. Of course, I feared saying it again once we got to what was termed the battle in those days, and now we call it a Friday night fight. But to admit in front of a group of men, we probably had 25 men in that group, and we all were expected to stand up and tell our stories, which we did. And, knowing you're in a group with a bunch of men whose stories were all similar. Yeah.
We're not alone.
You realize, no, this is a huge deal for all of us. So from that point on, it's been a trail where I recognize that it's not me, it's a huge number of men that are out there with the same issue.
Yeah, walking in isolation. So from the darkness and isolation and hopelessness to the light, to confession, to community and hope.
Right.
Those are big keys.
Right.
Which is a part of the purity events that we do. And there are other wonderful ministries out there that we want to highlight as well.
Yes. And now being on the other side of that, where I've had men share with me their stories, and to become their accountability partner for periods of time, some as much as 5 or 6 years now. I've had the same accountability partners, and we stay in touch by phone, not daily anymore, but certainly within several weeks we'll constantly call each other and catch up and encourage us to walk in faith. And I can't think of a single failure of men that have started down this road and have decided to turn away and go back to their old habits.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, we walk in the light together in community with the gospel ahead of us. We have a chance.
That's so true, Joe. Yeah.
Doug, thank you for your time.
You're welcome.